they come to see a man fall or to see him fly? I have a couple of friends who I've recently named Statler and Waldorf. To some degree this is done in jest, but there is a serious point behind the humour. A few months ago I grew a little wearisome of their constant criticism of things and of others. So I gave them the name partly in jest and partly in criticism of their constant criticism. Statler and Waldorf are two characters from Jim Henson's The Muppet Show. Now the pair don't really participate in this show, and instead they sit on the balcony heckling the rest of the characters who are trying to create the show. They are archetypes for we who sit back, pour scorn and criticise the efforts of others to do the best that they can do. It's so easy to do this, is it not? It is so easy to just sit back and criticise the best efforts of others while doing nothing ourselves. Now I realise I'm being unfair when I give my friends this name. They actually do a lot, an awful lot, for many, many people. That said, they do at times come across as grumpy, critical old men, a bit like Statler and Waldorf. By the way, I am very aware that I am displaying similar characteristics myself when I become critical of their criticism and grumpy of their grumpiness. Increasingly, we seem intent on fault finding and discovering the imperfections in one another. Why do we do this? Do we believe it will help us feel better about ourselves if we pour scorn on the imperfections of others? Well, maybe not. There is a song titled Knievel on the latest New Model Army album Between Dog and Wolf. It is inspired by the life of Evel Knievel, that most famous stunt motorbike rider from the 1970s. And there's a line in this song that is repeated over and over again. The line is, do they come to see a man fall or to see him fly? It is asking if the people come to see him achieve his feats or do they come to see him fall from the heavens? The thing about Knievel is that he was as likely to fail as he was to succeed. And yet he always took off. Now the song is not just a commentary on this crazy, complex, talented individual, but also the world in which we live. A world in which we build up to hero status only to take pot shots at people for their only two human imperfections. I often wonder if when we are shooting others down, what we are really doing is attempting to deflect from our own imperfections. The critic is someone who stands at the side taking pot shots at the people who have the courage to stand above the parapet and give something a go. In The Heart of the Enlightened, Anthony de Mello tells the following story. A woman complained to a visiting friend that her neighbour was a poor housekeeper. You should see how dirty her children are, and her house? It is almost a disgrace to be living in the same neighbourhood as her. Take a look at those clothes she has hung out on the line. See the black streaks on the sheets and the towels. The friend walked up to the window and said, I think the clothes are quite clean, my dear. The streaks are on your window. Now this story brings to mind words from Matthew's Gospel, chapter 7, verses 1 to 12. Why do you see the speck in your neighbour's eye, but do not notice the log in your own eye? It's easy to pass judgment and to find fault in others, but is this what our task is? To tear apart everyone else, to point out where they are going wrong? Or is it to make the most of who we are, not only for ourselves, but for the good of all? Is our task to be the critic who picks apart what others do? Or is it to contribute to life in whatever ways we can? I, for one, no longer wish to choose the path of lazy cynicism and criticism. I'd much rather do what I can and risk getting shot down. Now this requires courage. This requires living with an open heart. Do you know that courage originally meant just this? Its etymological root is the Latin word cor. Courage meant to speak one's mind by telling all of your heart. Now these days this seems to have negative connotations. To speak one's mind often means to speak critically, but that wasn't the case in ancient times. By speaking one's mind by telling all your heart meant to speak from love. It meant to speak the language of the heart. It meant to speak the language of divine love. This can come again. We can live with real courage again. All we need to do is to live in the world with an open heart. All we need to do is to give all that we are to life. We don't need to put one another down in order to feel a little better about ourselves and deflect from our own inadequacies. Instead, we can see the world through loving eyes and encourage ourselves and one another to be the best we can be, and therefore create the best of this, our world. So what are you going to be today? Are you going to be the critic who stands on the sidelines pointing out the imperfections in others? Or are you going to be all that you can be in life, give all that you have to give, and encourage others to do the same? Do they come to see a man fall, or to see him fly? I invite you now to join with me in a few moments of prayer. Let us pray. God of love, divine Spirit of compassion, be present here with us this day. Help us to know your loving presence here amongst us. Let it awaken within us. Help us to attune ourselves to the great mysteries of creation, to the wonder of the moment. Awaken our senses to life itself, to what is both beautiful and holy. Help us to experience your Spirit as it flows through all of life, that is present in our hearts and souls, and those of our brothers and sisters. Help us to let down those barriers that separate us from one another and from our true being. Help us not to deny our weaknesses or to become enslaved by the fear of imperfection. Bring us into harmony, O God. Show us how to be all that we were born to be. Deliver us from impatience, intolerance, and most of all from hate. Bring us to that place of compassionate, self-giving, and self-liberating love. Show us the way, O God. Show us the way. Amen.